Breaking: Jey Uso just destroyed the Bloodline. Roman Reigns' worst nightmare is coming true next week on Raw. I am absolutely furious right now, and you need to hear what's about to happen next week on Monday Night Raw because the wrestling world is about to be turned completely upside down. Jey Uso, the man who has stood by Roman Reigns through everything, the loyal twin brother who never wavered, who defended the tribal chief against everyone including his own twin brother Jey, is about to commit the ultimate act of betrayal. Next week on Raw, according to multiple backstage sources and leaked information that WWE is desperately trying to keep quiet, Jey Uso is going to turn on Roman Reigns in the most devastating and personal way imaginable. And I'm not talking about a simple attack or a heated argument. I'm talking about Jey aligning with Roman's enemies, renouncing the Bloodline, and potentially ending the most dominant faction in modern WWE history. But here's what's making my blood boil right now, and I want you to tell me if you feel the same rage I'm feeling. How dare Jey Uso betray the man who elevated him to main event status? How dare he turn his back on family after everything Roman has done for him, for Jey, for their entire bloodline? Or am I completely wrong? Is Jey actually the hero of this story for finally standing up to Roman's tyranny? Tell me right now in the comments whether you think Jey is a traitor or a hero, because what's about to happen next week is going to divide the WWE universe like nothing we've seen before. Let me break down exactly what's going to happen, why it's happening, and why this changes absolutely everything about WWE's landscape moving forward. Because this isn't just another shocking moment that gets forgotten in 2 weeks. This is the culmination of years of storytelling, and it's going to have repercussions that last for years to come. First, let's talk about how we got here. The Bloodline has been the centerpiece of WWE programming for over 3 years. Roman Reigns as the tribal chief created the most dominant championship reign in modern WWE history. The Usos became the longest reigning tag team champions ever. Solo Sikoa emerged as a legitimate main event threat, and Paul Heyman orchestrated it all as the wise man. But cracks started forming in the Bloodline's foundation months ago. Jey Uso was the first to question Roman's leadership. He was tired of being treated like a servant rather than family. He was exhausted from the constant manipulation and psychological abuse that Roman disguised as tough love. Eventually, Jey couldn't take it anymore, and he left the Bloodline in an emotional moment that had fans crying. Jey, however, stayed loyal. Even as his twin brother Jey walked away, even as the family fractured, Jey stood by Roman's side. Jey defended Roman's actions. Jey argued that everything Roman did was for the good of the family, for their legacy, for cementing the Bloodline's place in history. And Roman rewarded that loyalty by treating Jey like garbage, by demanding more and more from him, by publicly humiliating him whenever Jey didn't meet Roman's impossible standards, by making it clear that in the Bloodline hierarchy, Jey was expendable. But Jey endured. He took the verbal abuse. He took the physical punishment when things went wrong. He convinced himself that this was what family did: you sacrifice for each other, you suffer together, and you emerge stronger on the other side. That ends next week on Raw. And the way it's going to happen is going to shock everyone. Here's what I'm hearing from multiple sources close to WWE's creative team. Next week's Raw is going to feature a segment where Roman Reigns addresses the WWE Universe about the Bloodline's future. Roman is going to talk about how Solo Sikoa has become his enforcer, how the Bloodline is stronger than ever despite Jey's departure, and how anyone who stands against the tribal chief will be destroyed. Jey Uso is going to be standing in the ring during this promo, right beside Roman as he always has. But something is going to be different about Jey. His body language is going to be off. He's not going to have that usual fire in his eyes. He's going to look conflicted, tired, beaten down. And then Roman is going to make a fatal mistake. Roman is going to do what he always does: he's going to belittle Jey in front of everyone. He's going to mock Jey's recent performance. He's going to question whether Jey has what it takes to remain in the Bloodline. He's going to suggest that maybe Jey should follow Jey out the door if he can't handle the pressure. That's when everything explodes. Let me ask you something, and I really want your honest opinion in the comments. How long can someone endure psychological abuse before they snap? How much disrespect can you take from family before you realize that blood doesn't excuse toxic behavior? Jey is going to respond to Roman's verbal assault with something Roman never expected: defiance. Jey is going to tell Roman that he's done being treated like a servant, done watching Roman destroy their family, done pretending that Roman's quest for power and dominance is about anything other than Roman's ego. Roman, shocked that Jey would dare speak to him this way, is going to get in Jey's face. He's going to invoke his role as tribal chief. He's going to demand that Jey acknowledge him, fall in line, or face the consequences. And that's when Jey Uso is going to do the unthinkable. He's going to superkick Roman Reigns right in the face. The arena is going to erupt. The commentary team is going to lose their minds. Solo Sikoa is going to try to intervene, but here's where it gets even crazier: Jey Uso is going to run out from the crowd or backstage to help his twin brother. The Usos are going to reunite, standing together against Roman and Solo, and they're going to clear the ring. But the betrayal doesn't end there. Sources are telling me that Jimmy isn't just turning on Roman physically. He's going to cut a promo that completely destroys Roman's mystique and authority. Jimmy is going to expose Roman as a manipulator, a narcissist, and a tyrant who used his family for his own glory while giving nothing back. Jimmy is going to talk about the years of emotional manipulation, how Roman pitted the twins against each other, how Roman made them compete for his approval like they were children instead of grown men and accomplished wrestlers in their own right, how Roman turned family into a weapon instead of a source of strength and love. This promo is going to be personal, raw, and absolutely devastating to Roman's character. Because when someone who has been your most loyal supporter turns on you and explains exactly why, it hits different. It's not just betrayal, it's truth. And the truth is that Roman Reigns has become exactly what he always feared, a tyrant who rules through fear rather than respect, who demands loyalty but gives none in return, and who has destroyed his own family in pursuit of power. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, and I want you to address this in the comments. Is Jimmy justified in betraying Roman, or is this just another example of the Anoa'i family turning on each other like they always do? Let's talk about the immediate fallout from this betrayal because the ramifications are going to be massive and immediate. First, there's the question of the Bloodline's future. With Jimmy gone, Roman now only has Solo Sikoa as his enforcer. Paul Heyman's status is complicated given recent events. The faction that once seemed unstoppable is now reduced to basically 2 active members. That's not a dominant faction. That's barely a tag team. Roman is going to have to make decisions quickly. Does he try to recruit new members to the Bloodline? Does he reach out to other members of the Anoa'i family like Jacob Fatu or Lance Anoa'i? Does he try to bring in non-family members, which would contradict everything the Bloodline has stood for? Or does Roman double down with just Solo, making the Bloodline smaller but more focused and more vicious? Does this betrayal turn Roman into an even more dangerous version of himself, someone who trusts no one and destroys everyone? Second, there's the question of what Jimmy and Jey do next. The Usos reuniting is huge, but are they going back to being a traditional tag team? Are they going to chase the tag team championships again? Or are they going to dedicate themselves to taking down Roman Reigns completely? My sources are suggesting that Jimmy and Jey aren't just leaving the Bloodline, they're actively going to war against it. This isn't a case of we're going our separate ways and maybe we'll cross paths occasionally. This is personal. This is family warfare taken to its most extreme level. The Usos are going to form alliances with other wrestlers who have been victimized by the Bloodline over the years. Think about how many people Roman and the Bloodline have destroyed: Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Drew McIntyre, and so many others. Jimmy and Jey could build an entire army of Roman's enemies. And that brings us to the third major ramification. This completely reshapes WWE's main event scene. Roman Reigns has been the final boss of WWE for years. Everyone's story has revolved around him in some way. But if the Bloodline falls apart, if Roman loses his family and his faction, what does that mean for his position in WWE? Does Roman become more vulnerable? Does this open the door for other stars to challenge him and actually have a credible chance of winning? Or does Roman become even more dangerous as a solo competitor who has nothing left to lose? Here's another question for you, and this one's important. Do you want to see Roman Reigns continue as the dominant tribal chief, or is it time for someone else to take the spotlight as WWE's top star? Let's also discuss why WWE is making this move now. Because the timing of this betrayal is very strategic, and it tells us a lot about WWE's plans for the future. WWE is clearly building towards something major. WrestleMania season is still months away, but the company is already laying groundwork for their biggest stories. The Jimmy Uso betrayal sets up a potential massive multi-man match at Survivor Series or even a War Games match where it's the Bloodline versus everyone they've ever wronged. But beyond that, this betrayal is necessary because the Bloodline story was starting to feel stale. Roman's reign as tribal chief has been incredible, but even the best stories need evolution and change. By having Jimmy turn on Roman, WWE is injecting fresh energy and new conflict into a storyline that was in danger of becoming repetitive. This also sets up fascinating character development opportunities. Jimmy has always been in Jey's shadow to some degree. Jey got the big emotional moments. Jey got the singles matches with Roman. Jey was the breakout star of the Usos while Jimmy was seen as the supporting player. But now Jimmy gets his moment. Jimmy gets to be the one who stands up to Roman. Jimmy gets to deliver the promo that changes everything. Jimmy gets to be the catalyst for the Bloodline's downfall. This is Jimmy's time to shine as an individual character, not just as half of a tag team. From WWE's creative perspective, this also opens up so many storytelling possibilities. You can do Jimmy versus Roman in a singles feud. You can do the Usos versus Roman and Solo for tag team supremacy. You can bring in other family members to take sides. You can explore decades of Anoa'i family history and drama. And here's something that nobody seems to be talking about: what does this mean for The Rock? Because Dwayne Johnson is part of this family too. The Rock has been positioning himself for a return to WWE. He's been vocal about wanting to be part of the Bloodline story. So when Jimmy betrays Roman and the family goes to war with itself, does The Rock get involved? And if so, whose side does he take? Can you imagine The Rock aligning with Roman, giving the Bloodline the ultimate power boost? Or imagine The Rock siding with Jimmy and Jey, seeing that they're the ones fighting for what family should actually mean? Either scenario would be absolutely massive. What's your dream scenario involving The Rock in this storyline? Tell me in the comments who you think The Rock should align with if he gets involved. Now let's talk about the match quality and storytelling opportunities this creates. Because beyond the shocking betrayal and the emotional drama, this sets up some potentially incredible matches. Jey Uso vs Roman Reigns in a singles match has never happened at a major premium live event. Think about that. These two have been family, have been allies, have been in matches together for years, but they've never had a one-on-one blood feud. That match, done correctly with months of build and real emotion behind it, could be an absolute classic. The Usos vs Roman and Solo would be incredible as well. You'd have the best tag team of this generation against a makeshift team of dominant singles competitors. The story writes itself. Can Roman and Solo work together effectively, or do their egos and Roman's leadership style cause them to implode? And then there's the potential for larger-scale matches. A War Games match where it's the Usos and their allies trapped in a cage with the Bloodline would be brutal and intense. A Survivor Series elimination match where each side recruits team members would allow WWE to involve multiple stars and create unexpected alliances. The possibilities are endless, and that's exciting, but it's also terrifying because we know WWE's track record. Sometimes they nail these big storylines. Sometimes they fumble them spectacularly. Which version are we going to get with this Jimmy betrayal angle? I'm cautiously optimistic because Triple H's creative regime has shown a willingness to let stories breathe and develop naturally. They've been better about long-term planning and payoffs. But this is such a massive moment that it would be easy to mess up. The biggest risk is that WWE rushes through this. That they do the betrayal next week, have Jimmy and Roman fight at the next premium live event, and then everyone moves on to other stories. That would be a waste of the potential this angle has. What WWE needs to do is let this breathe. Let the betrayal happen next week. Let the shock and anger and emotion be felt. Then spend months building to the ultimate confrontation. Make us wait for Jimmy vs Roman. Make us desperate to see that match so that when it finally happens, it feels like the most important thing in the world. Here's my question for you. How long should WWE wait before having Jimmy Uso face Roman Reigns one-on-one? Should it happen immediately, or should they build to it over several months? We also need to talk about the social media reaction that's going to happen when this goes down. Because in today's wrestling landscape, the conversation on social media is almost as important as what happens in the ring. When Jimmy super kicks Roman next week, Twitter is going to explode. Wrestling forums are going to crash from the traffic. YouTube is going to be flooded with reaction videos and analysis. This is the kind of moment that transcends wrestling and becomes a pop culture event. And WWE knows this. They're going to promote the aftermath heavily. They're going to encourage fans to share their reactions. They're going to make this feel like the most important thing happening in entertainment, not just wrestling. But here's where WWE needs to be careful. They can't let social media dictate the story. They can't panic and change directions based on whether the reaction skews positive or negative initially. They need to trust their vision and see this story through to its conclusion, regardless of short-term online chatter. The best storylines in wrestling history were often controversial when they happened. Stone Cold turning heel at WrestleMania X7 was hated by many fans initially but is now recognized as a bold creative choice. The Shield's breakup with Seth's betrayal was shocking and divisive. These moments worked because WWE committed to them. Jimmy's betrayal of Roman needs that same commitment. WWE needs to believe in this story and tell it completely, not hedge their bets or try to please everyone. Let's also consider the personal toll this storyline is going to take on the performers. Because unlike most wrestling storylines, this one involves real family. The Anoa'i family is legendary in wrestling. They have generations of history, both in and out of the ring. And now WWE is asking them to portray a family tearing itself apart. That can't be easy. Even though everyone involved is a professional and understands that this is storytelling, there's something emotionally draining about performing a family breakup night after night, week after week. But that emotional authenticity is also what's going to make this angle so powerful. When Jimmy talks about feeling disrespected and undervalued, there might be kernels of truth there. When Roman expresses betrayal and anger, he can tap into real emotions about family expectations and disappointment. The best wrestling has always blurred the line between reality and fiction, and this Jimmy betrayal angle is going to do that better than almost anything WWE has done in years. One more question for the comments, and this is a big one. Who do you think wins when this family war is over? Does Roman Reigns maintain his position as tribal chief, or do Jimmy and Jey successfully take him down? Now let's talk about the potential surprise elements that could happen next week beyond just the betrayal itself. Because if I know WWE, they're not going to do this straightforwardly. There's going to be twists and surprises that we're not expecting. One possibility: what if Solo Sikoa also turns on Roman? What if Solo has been quietly resenting Roman's leadership style too, and when Jimmy makes his move, Solo decides he's done as well? That would leave Roman completely alone, which could be a fascinating direction for his character. Another possibility: what if this is all a setup? What if Jimmy and Roman have orchestrated this betrayal as a way to draw out Roman's enemies and destroy them all at once? I don't think that's likely given the storytelling trajectory, but it would be a hell of a swerve. A third possibility: what if someone completely unexpected debuts or returns to side with either Jimmy or Roman? WWE loves shocking debuts, and this would be the perfect time to bring in someone like Jacob Fatu or have a returning star align with one side of this family conflict. The uncertainty is part of what makes this so exciting. We think we know what's going to happen, but WWE could throw curveballs that change everything. What we do know for certain is that next week's Raw is going to be must-see television. This isn't one of those things where you can catch the highlights on social media later. This is a moment you're going to want to watch live so you can experience it as it happens and be part of the conversation immediately afterward. The wrestling world is going to change next Monday night. The Bloodline as we know it is going to cease to exist. Jimmy Uso is going to commit the ultimate act of betrayal or liberation, depending on your perspective. And Roman Reigns is going to face the biggest crisis of his reign as tribal chief. This is the kind of storytelling that reminds us why we love professional wrestling. It's not just about athletic competition or predetermined outcomes. It's about characters we care about making choices that have consequences. It's about family, loyalty, betrayal, and redemption. It's about moments that make us feel something real, even though we know it's all performance. So here's what I need from you. I need you to tell me in the comments right now: are you Team Jimmy or Team Roman? Do you think Jimmy is a traitor who's turning his back on family, or is he a hero who's finally standing up to a tyrant? There's no wrong answer here. This is about perspective and what you value in these characters. And I need you to share this video with every wrestling fan you know, because next week is going to be historic. Make sure everyone is prepared for what's coming. Make sure everyone tunes into Raw. Make sure everyone is ready to have their minds blown. Hit that like button if you're excited about Jimmy's betrayal. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because I'm going to have full coverage and analysis of next week's Raw immediately after it happens. Turn on notifications so you don't miss a single update about this developing story. The Bloodline is falling apart. Jimmy Uso is choosing himself and his brother over Roman's tyranny. And WWE is about to deliver one of the most shocking and emotional storylines in recent memory. Next week on Raw, everything changes. And I cannot wait to experience it with all of you.